Hey everyone, time for more reading of Withered Kingdom. I don't know why I said it that way. Withered Kingdom, my fantasy novel. I've been slowly going through the book here on this live stream. Happy Monday evening, I guess, to everybody. I know it's everyone's least favorite day of the week, but maybe being able to sit and listen through me doing some reading will bring you some kind of peace. I don't know. I might end up getting through this whole book in just a few more parts. I kind of want to read a little more each time I sit down to read. My tiniest cat is trying to wreak havoc on my desk right now. Are you being annoying? No? Okay, she's planting herself in place. Whoa, I need to be more careful with my camera. Jeez. Anyway, I'm going to start reading after a recap, I suppose. Up to this point, the main character, Gia, has awoken on the planet Phyron with no memories. He has no memories from before he woke up. He's lost... oh, hi, Tom. I'm going to press the wave button there. He has awoken with no memories, and he is trying to kind of find his way. He gets captured by a general, a half-giant with fire magic, who sort of befriends him against all odds, and pleads for his case when brought against the judgment of the king. Things go pretty well for Gia, even though he has to fight the king's main attendant, an ice magic specialist named Polaris. Gia wins that fight and wins the people's favor, so he is not determined to be a threat from the enemy, even though he kind of looks like he might be an enemy to the kingdom. But the king, in return, has Gia, our main character here, join the military for a year. 1 year of mandatory military service. As he is about to try and go with Nova, his half-giant friend, to serve his year of military service before he can be free, he gets kidnapped and taken back into the dungeons where he had been held. And nobody knows where he is except for a false priest, someone who claims to have known him from his previous life. This man, called Aqua, helps break Gia out of the dungeon, a secret part of the dungeon where no one knows where he is, except for this Aqua. And so they have broken out, and they are kind of refugees, or not refugees, what's the word I'm looking for? Renegades. They're on the run, and Gia's kind of got this opportunity where he can go and seek his own peace. He can run off and do whatever he wants, or he can choose to follow Aqua, who might have some keys to his past. Gia doesn't really remember anything yet, but they were just about to... Aqua makes a deal with Gia that he feels like he can restore one or a few of Gia's memories in order for him to trust Aqua. So he does, and Gia remembers through this process of basically joining hands that Gia remembers he has a brother named Seiju, and that's where that ends off. It's probably going to be all flipped on this screen, but starting scene 2 begins with a part called Nomads. I don't think anyone's missing. We have everyone, and we're meeting our expected markers on time for this march. General Nova dictated a letter to a soldier from within the general's tent. He craned over the writer's quill and scroll. His Majesty is wise to seek early reports. Write it down, come on. And he should not be worried. We will make it to Kilaba on time. I can personally assure him of that, really. The soldier looked at the general without moving his quill. I can't lie to my king, and what you're asking me to do is practically treason. It is treason, but there's a reason for the treason. He rolled his eyes and continued. A purpose for my decisions. He trusts me, and you can too. By the time this letter gets to him, it will be accurate. It's not a lie unless you deliver the letter too quickly, so just, be sensible. My forces will still be the first to reach Kilaba, and everything will be fine. Nova inked a stamp and stuck it on the bottom of the scroll and shooed the soldier out of his tent. It was the morning after he lost track of Gia, and Nova stepped out into the damp wetland floor just south of Silver Rock. Tell your kids I miss them, Geoga, Nova said to the reporting soldier as he left the tent, then got on his horse. You're a good man for serving your king and his forces. The soldier scoffed and rode away. Nova's tent was at the forefront of a massive camp stretched out over the wetlands. The general strolled out toward a group of soldiers wielding long poles and hooks. Nothing to report so far, sir, the lead soldier in the group said. Where is Captain Vetris? The guard pointed in response to Nova. I'm going to go search personally with him. Nova followed the finger and snaked the paths between small lakes and ponds that peppered the ground. The dying grasses bristled against his ankles, and the entire time he walked until he caught up with Captain Vetris. Here we go, the general himself, Vetris welcomed Nova, but returned to skimming the edge of the pond in front of him with a long wooden pole. Glad you could join us. Glad to be here, but it's unusual to see you more than a stone's throw away from the castle. I vacation to Ika sometimes. Yeah, every decade. I have duties as head captain of the guard. You should remember what it's like. Hardly. I was only in that position a few weeks before I was promoted. No wonder Polaris hates you. He worked longer than I've been alive to reach captain, let alone general. And he's probably the best fighter not in active service. Polaris doesn't hate me. We all see it. He thinks you're His Majesty's favorite, but he's too scared to second-guess the king, especially while working so close with him as an attendant. Too loyal, not too scared. He may look down on me for advancing at a young age, but times have changed. We don't have the support of the border nations like we used to. It's hard to keep any army together, much less find a firecaster who can control his power. Nova crouched down and squinted to look as far into the distance as he could. He settled on a patch of trees. When he stood up and walked toward them, the captain followed. Do you think the Grey Shadows had anything to do with this? Do you think they believe in the scriptures? The captain said under his breath, confident their conversation was private. If they believed in the scriptures, they wouldn't fight against the king. So, no, I don't think this disappearance is due to them. What would they gain from it? They want the king dead. Why kidnap anyone else? Nova stretched his fingers out and traced some lines on the bark of a birch tree. Look, someone's been through here. This branch stump is fresh. It was broken off less than 2 days ago. Nova examined a tree and then looked for prints in the ground. We're not just looking for Gia, are we? The captain knelt down and noted a footprint far larger than Gia's foot. Yes, Gia wasn't the only one reported missing. A discarded priest's rope was found in an old dungeon offshoot that's not even on the castle's records. I'm thinking the vestiges belong to the person who took Gia. Is there a priest missing from the local chapel? Captain Vetris hushed even more. I thought I saw someone familiar around the castle lately. I should have interviewed him. It's convenient, Nova scratched his chin. This newcomer priest takes our angel the same day that you, the only person whose job it is to know everyone in the castle, are ordered by the king on an extended trip. Are you accusing me? Vetris froze up. No, someone who knew you were coming with me probably leaked this information to the priest that took Gia. Nova sighed and rubbed his eyes. It's like no matter how hard we work to weed out every last possible gray shadow from our discussions, information always gets out. So you don't suspect me? Should I? Examine me if you would. I have nothing to hide. I don't believe it's you. Can you tell me anything else about the new priest? Not much. Like I said, I never got to interview him. Big guy for a priest, though. Not a monk. A priest? He wore a traditional white and gold robe, carried the ancient scriptures. Then he was an impostor from the beginning. They say the retaining wall broke and flooded the dungeon. I don't believe that. I don't think you do either. We have a few dozen watercasters on record, so I think whoever this is a watercaster, and they broke Gia out on purpose. Nova just nodded. Did Polaris talk to you before we left? Didn't have the time. I had to get all the weapons and armor orders and count our payment wagons. It's a wonder we even got this far. The captain squinted at the ground and brushed through the grass, feeling out another print. But there have to be 2 people here, unless it's one person with 2 very differently shaped feet. This one is big. Could belong to that false priest. Gia was wearing sandals, so it makes sense we could barely see his prints, Nova said. But that priest must have worn combat boots. Look at the markings here. Armor plating around the toes. The general found the remains of a campfire in the deepest part of the thicket and dug in to see how long... Stop drinking my water, cat. No. Sorry, my cat is trying to drink my water. The general found the remains of a campfire in the deepest part of the thicket and dug into it to see how long ago the fire had begun. Everything's right, my friend. Nova stood up and cupped his fist. The timing, the shapes. We have a solid lead. Let's get some dogs down here and sniff them out. An hour and a half passed in the search, and Nova and Vetris at the front, following hunting dogs through the trees. By the time the sun reached its highest perch in the sky, a thick layer of light gray clouds moved over their heads. A few drops sprinkled every few seconds, but actual rain wasn't falling. Have we lost the trail? Vetris asked, arms akimbo, shaking his head at the dogs. Don't worry, they'll figure it out. They always do. Nova knelt down by one of the hounds and played with its ears. The animal's flopping ears flicked in the air with Nova's vigorous attention. If you keep distracting them, we'll never find Gia and Aqua. Oh, they're working hard. They deserve a little love. Nova talked with squished-in lips at the dog. Isn't that right, friend? Yes. Let's go find them. Come on. He stroked the hound a few times and stood back up. The dog bounded a few feet ahead and sniffed in the grass for the trail. What if we can't find them, and we miss our marker? The captain said quietly, making sure the other soldiers nearby couldn't hear. We'll be fine, Captain. General, a voice came out from up in a tree. Gia? Nova looked up and saw Gia balled up in a split in the branches. Who's with you? Asked Gia. Captain Vetris, my army, and some scouts. Polaris and his party will be crossing through here later today, and I really want to be out of here by then. Come on down, it's safe. Do you trust everyone with you? Someone kidnapped me and threw me in the dungeon. A big man impersonated a priest, right? That's not really how it went. A man in a mask kidnapped me and told me I had to stay there, and then a guard... Maybe it was a bad idea, Gia thought, to reveal what he knew about his encounter with the Emperor's image. Where is the priest? Nova asked. Where is the priest? Nova asked. Aqua's trying to find fish in the lake, but he's not the one that kidnapped me. Get out of the tree and we can talk. We need to speak in private, Gia said and leaped out of the tree. He dropped a dozen feet but touched the ground like a landing dove. His aura glowed a bit on the way down, making some brown leaves swirl below him. So, what happened? Let's talk over there. Gia motioned for them to walk into another thicket of trees behind him that was near a small lake. Nova agreed and they walked away. Seeing nobody had followed them, Gia leaned against one of the widest trees and crossed his arms. He sighed and pinched his forehead with his finger and thumb. I feel like you're the only person I can trust. My soldiers are trustworthy as well. I don't even know how you're going to take this. I didn't run away, at least not at first. What do you mean? I stepped out of the armory for a moment and you were gone. Can you tell me what happened to you after that? I was kidnapped. A group of men snuck up behind me and took me away. They wore black and hauled me down to the dungeons, covered my eyes and took me somewhere I'd never seen before. They locked me in a cell, Gia breathed in heavy. Who was it? Did you see who did this to you? That's the hard part. I don't know who carried me. I only know that they locked me up. I only know that after they locked me up, a masked man told me I had to be kept there, like he needed me for something. You didn't get to see who it was? No. The mask covered everything that would identify him. I couldn't even see his eyes. They were covered by shadows, the way the mask was made. What about his voice? Does it sound like anyone you know? It sounded familiar. Gia looked down, feeling his heartbeat in his throat. Who do you think it was? I think it was the king's attendant, the one I fought that night. No way, Nova said, and didn't remove his eyes from Gia. Polaris is the king's personal attendant and most trusted ally. You may have hurt him in a fight, but he's a bigger man than to take it out on you. Besides, he was responsible for keeping you safe. Are you sure? I heard from a priest that there's a group of people who are trying to dethrone the king. Some secret group that wants the kingdom to crumble. He knew? Then they exist? I am hesitant to talk about it, but yes, they're not a friendly bunch. I can't say much for sure. Only one or two have ever been caught, and we have never gotten names of their companies out of any of them, of their companions out of any of them. They've sworn together like some brotherhood, living only in the shadows, but working inside our society like everyone else. But there's no way Polaris could be one of them. He lives, eats, sleeps, and works within the arm's reach of the king at all times. But he hates everyone. Why wouldn't you suspect him? If he wanted the king dead, he could have done it by now. All kings before Magillo kept 4 attendants. After his father died, Magillo never appointed new ones. Polaris is the only one left. He saved the king's life. When Gia looked away, Nova blocked Gia's vision. Are you absolutely sure it was? Nova held his hands flat together and waved them up and down in little chops with every syllable until Gia interrupted him. No, but that's what I heard. Nobody really talks like Polaris. Not that I've heard yet. If he is one of the Grey Shadows, why would he put you in a secret dungeon, especially right under the king's nose? If we tell anyone about this, he's going to be suspect. But that's just the thing. I don't know that he was really all that evil about it. It's like he knows something more about my destiny than I do. Like he could keep me safe from other influences. And that makes sense. Why? Someone else did come to see me. The priest. What happened to him? No, not the priest. I mean, he did it first, but he wasn't the one who threatened me. Nova looked taken aback. Gia stumbled over his words, trying to bring him back into the conversation. The priest came to see me, but another guard also came by and put a torch in my cell. It burned, and he felt like it was crazy to say it, but Nova was leaning in close. He couldn't stop now. A man came out of it, covered in purple flames, told me I should run away or he would destroy me. The Emperor, Nova whispered deep and gruff. He has visited you too. No, not me, but I was there when a traitor came into the war room and did the same thing. Nova looked away like he was watching it all happen again. I don't want to run away. I don't want to join the military either, but I have to do something. How did you get out of the dungeon? The priest was actually a man disguised as a priest. His name is Aqua, and he's a water caster. He pulled the wall down using the groundwater. Then we rode on the underground river out of here. Impossible. The dungeons have seals that prevent casting within them. He gave me a knife, and I scratched the seal in the cell away. There were secret cells on some forgotten part of the dungeons. Oh no, we didn't flood the castle, did we? Yeah, that man destroyed part of the castle. He's a criminal. I'm a criminal too, aren't I? Isn't Polaris? Things aren't that black and white. We don't know who to trust. What happened to the other one? Aqua? Gale looked toward the lake. He was going to go fishing. We haven't eaten all day. Never mind that. We have food on the troop wagons. We have to leave. Excuse me. Depending on how fast he mobilized his search party, Polaris could already be nearby. I will bring the other one in. You're not going to arrest him too, are you? Gia asked, not thinking that was really what Nova meant, until the large man stood up and unbuckled a clasp that held his greatsword onto his back. Go with Captain Vetris. Nova's eyes looked far too excited for Gia's comfort. No, Aqua's not a bad guy. You're coming with me up to Killaba. Apart from a fugitive, you're also a soldier, remember? 1 year. Nova pointed to the captain, who made eye contact and approached them. No, Nova, please, put away your sword, Gia yelled, and the closer Nova got to the shore. As soon as Gia could see, the captain was within arm's reach of Gia. Aqua shot out of the nearest lake in dragon form. He changed back to a human in midair, landed in front of the general, and swung his fists like clubs. Nova kicked Aqua backward into a tree and took a defensive stance. Aqua recovered as well and kicked off the tree, arching back for another punch. He missed Nova's head, but still managed to use his weight to shove Nova backward. Nova slid in the muddy ground and struck back with a row of knuckles straight to Aqua's ribcage. Aqua gripped his side and sent the back of his hand out in a slap to catch the general's face, but Nova ducked under the strike. Don't make this hard on yourself, friend. I only want to take you back. You're only asking for more danger if you keep this up, Nova said, dodging hooked punches and a few roundhouse kicks. The scuffle drew the attention of Vetris and others, who hurried to support Nova. I've taken on much bigger and badder than you've ever imagined. Aqua swung an uppercut that shook the very air. Nova leaned back to dodge the swing. The general's long hair took to the wind from Aqua's punch. The moment before he countered with something Gia didn't believe at first. Nova snuck his right arm between Aqua's legs and seized the escapee's outstretched punching arm with his left hand and lifted Aqua clear off the ground and over his head. It looked something like a bundle of twigs supporting a boulder for a moment, before Nova turned Aqua upside down and threw him onto his back. Aqua landed with a thud that pulsed through the wet ground underneath Gia's feet. A handful of Vetris's team fell upon Aqua and bound him like a prisoner. Nova smiled like a kid at a birthday party. You've got a big friend here, Gia, but has he ever met a Vaden before? Probably not. That's the end of that part. I'm going to drink some water. You never think about how quickly your mouth dries up until you're reading on a live stream. So the next part is titled Blood. There's a theme to all of these chapter headings if you're paying very close attention. They're not chapters, but they're sections, and there's a theme to them, and you get a little extra insight into some of the themes I'm using through this book if you pay attention close enough and kind of solve the mystery. And it starts on page 123, which is a fun number because it's 1, 2, and 3 in a row. Anyway, Blood. 6 days after the altercation in the southern wetlands, Gia, Nova, and Aqua were deep into their march north around Silver Rock toward Killaba. Mild spring air washed over them and the landscape changed from wetlands to open plains. There were fewer trees now. Instead, there was a lot more brown grass, bare bushes, short hills, and small outcroppings of rock peeking out from under the hibernating sod. Above, the sky was gray. It had been raining off and on for the last couple of days, and didn't show any signs of clearing up. The soil here was dark and fertile, but as sleepy as the trees. Aqua remained a prisoner and walked in chains in the middle of the group. Since he seemed to not mind his chains, provided he traveled with Gia, the amnesiac tended to walk near the front. They followed a stream that was still framed with swaths of ice. Its water was clear and hand-numbingly cold, but tasted as fresh as berries straight off the vine. The trees near the water were young, but tall. Marks of dark green between patches of bark heralded the spring. A few starlings in the treetops caught Gia's eye. General? Gia asked Nova, who walked behind his horse. Yes? I probably should have asked this a long time ago, but what other kind of animals would show up here? I mean, dangerous ones like oogs. Coyotes roam around here, but they would never attack a group as big as ours. There's always the tiny chance of a brown or blue dragon could show up, but it's almost impossible. Some go their entire lives never seeing a dragon. There isn't much else. These lands are peaceful. We're near Ica. I thought you were at war with Ika. No. Nova and a few of the other soldiers listening in laughed. Nobody is at war with Ika. I guess a brief history lesson is in order. Let me explain. Long ago, there were just two major societies in this land. One filled with the religious and spiritual peoples, as well as farmers, many craftsmen and hunters. These were the ancient Orncanians. The scholars, warriors, blacksmiths, and politicians all favored the southern territories and were called the Sienese. For the most part, it had been that way for so long the people of ancient Ornka set up their own governments, placing religious figures at the helm of their cities and provinces. At the same time, the Sienese felt threatened by the greater numbers and growing economic and political power of their neighbors. They tried to tax the north for some of their resources, as there is valuable mining up north. The Sienese felt like some of that wealth belonged to them. Nobody knows exactly how the fighting started, but I heard the Orncanians attacked first. An Orncanian high priest declared the Sienese heathens and inspired his soldiers, his zealots, to punish the sinners. Then came war. The landscape changed. The Sienese society collapsed, but Orncanian society shattered into pieces as well. The farmers, the religiously peaceful, and anyone else seeking shelter fled to the eastern coast and established the kingdom of Ika. It is also known as a land of harmony, one where a man works his field, prays his prayers, and turns a blind eye every night to the horrors we face every day. Now, of course, the Ikons can't ignore the rest of the world as it falls in on itself. The elderly monarch of Ika submits to the protection of the king of Fyron. We get a lot of goods from them and protect their borders as though they were our own. Ika is a large land compared to our kingdom. It was bigger back when they were first split off. So how was your country started? Gia asked. Of course. As Sienese society dwindled and broke apart, the Orncanian zealots pressed it all the way to destruction. Within a few short years, their entire culture was dead. One Sienese boy survived the war, an orphan. He was a powerful caster and a skilled fighter. He used his strength and influence as a great speaker to rally together the forces necessary to take on the voracious Orncanian Empire. You see, the Empire made many enemies as they expanded. Phyrus Fyron, and the orphan I mentioned, united everyone who opposed the Empire. He won a fight with the Emperor himself and declared himself the king of Fyron. He would have wiped the Empire off the planet if he had kept fighting. Why didn't he? He disappeared. He disappeared. Gia wondered what this could have meant. Some say he died, or that he abandoned his people. Others say he was assassinated, but he was too powerful for that. The kingdom almost fell apart in its infancy until his son took the throne. What do you think happened? I think he did exactly what the legends say. The king disappeared. I don't mean he vanished into thin air, but he must have left the kingdom. Maybe he feared becoming an emperor like his sworn enemy had been. Maybe, though, it's more complicated than that. Maybe he had some kind of pilgrimage or spiritual journey to take. Nobody ever found him. I think he learned something that convinced him to leave. And now we fight the emperor? That's impossible, right? Has to be the first emperor's great-great-grandson or something. Gia thought about the man that appeared to him in a purple flame. That was all a long time ago, right? It's been generations since the empire was founded. But we're fighting the same emperor, Nova responded unblinkingly. Gia never believed the voice that came from the violet embers was telling the truth. How could he possibly outlive generations of Fyronian kings? Hold on. Gia held up a hand by his face. Hold on, the same emperor. He's immortal. That's why this war is so exhausting. We keep fighting and dying for generations, but we can't put a dent in it. It's like trying to dig a hole in the ocean. There's got to be a legend, or that's got to be a legend told to scare us off. Has anyone been able to see him enough times over the years to know that it's the same guy? It's probably a bunch of guys who all look and dress the same. like fathers and sons. You saw him yourself, right? Isn't that what you said? A man, formed out of purple fire? I know what I saw, but it wasn't hard to believe. It wasn't a dream when it was over. It's demonic magic. He may be able to move from the throne he may not be able to move from the throne he was impaled onto, but he is always one step ahead when he can send orders to his armies from halfway across the world without waiting for a rider to deliver them. What do you mean by demonic magic? Remember how I said the ancient Orncanian society was based on religion? It started that way, but a cult emerged from within the faith of the ancient culture that came from manipulating the darkness inside oneself. Every wicked thought, every foul act, every moment of anger they could distill from their souls they turn into spiritual energy, the same way us casters control the elements. Their devotion to this cult grants them greater power. The Emperor has been the leader since he crushed Ciania. This devotion keeps him immortal? That's what I assume. Lucky for us, though, he can't move his body. What? A previous king bound him to his throne with a sword through the chest. Nova smirked like he was the one that did it. Immortal or not, he can't move that body from his throne. That's why he created the magic, to protect his image. So he never even fights alongside his people? He couldn't if he tried, but that makes me nervous. He's a master of demonic magic and has had generations of time to develop his powers. That's a lot of time to plan an experiment. Who knows what he's capable of now? 26 kings of Fyron have fought in vain to destroy him. That's the very reason you are here, Gia. The scriptures tell us you and the other 3 angels would come along in time to help prosper the kingdom and end this war once and for all. For everyone's sake, I hope you can remember your past soon, so you can achieve your full potential and help us dismantle the Emperor's dark regime. That's not the end of the chapter, but I need water. How much further do we have to go? Gia tried to change the subject. We're almost halfway to Kilaba. Haven't we been going north this whole time? Isn't Ornka to the north? Kilaba is the northwestern border of the Protectorate. Just through its gates is Orncanian territory. Everything west of the Jagged Mountains is too. It wasn't his territory a few decades ago, but the Emperor just keeps on advancing. Kilaba's his next target. I need to speak to its mayor. Does the king have some special assignment for you? No. The mayor's a childhood friend. I have to deliver something as soon as we get there, too. What happens if we get there and it's already been taken over? Then we'll be fighting long before we get there. The kingdom can only afford to feed its soldiers because the nations that pay tribute believe the king can keep them safe. Things are very delicate right now, and we are playing a vital role in keeping it together by strengthening Kilaba. What will we do when we get there? Hold on. Nova slowed his horse and scanned the sunset horizon like a cat watching a mouse. He waved for the troops to slow and rested his hand on the sheath at his hip. What? Gia couldn't see anything. General Nova! A voice came from low in the grass. It was frantic and scattered, but the voice grew closer. I swear if I knew it was you, I would have called them off. Chiaro? Nova asked a man that popped out of the shrubs. The man was almost naked, dirty, and sickly thin. Go! Run! Chiaro almost fell onto Nova. The betrayer! A flint arrowhead sunk into the man's throat and opened a river of red that streamed down as he fell on his face. Take cover! Nova yelled so hard his throat trembled. He caught the fletching of an arrow before its point could pierce his chest. Hundreds of arrows whistled and whipped through the air from the direction of the setting sun, and Gia ran for a short hill just east of the road. He didn't look back at the commotion of armor, shields, and blades meeting a rain of projectiles. Stomp after stomp, he was getting closer to the hill, but before he could run around it and lie down for cover, he was struck twice. One arrow split the skin on the inside of his right leg. The other snagged in the flesh above his left elbow. Gia dove and rolled until he was hidden. As soon as he stopped, he rotated the barb of the arrow out of his arm and held it. The blood between his fingers got cold, faster than he thought. The shout of battle grew into a constant roar when it combined with Nova's fire casting. The amnesiac peeked over the hill for a moment to see a friendly soldier holding a skewered forearm cross the summit. To see a friendly soldier holding a skewered forearm cross the summit. Another man, dressed much the same way, crested the hill just behind the first. This man was chasing the other. So Gia reached to his back for a survival knife Nova gave him at the beginning of their march. He left it tied onto the back of his belt, but it was gone. Thinking quickly, he looked behind himself and found the straight steel weapon had slipped out when he dove behind the hill. Ducked low, he picked it out of the dry grass and threw the sheath off. The two soldiers that ran over Gia's hill were locked in combat. I don't know why I have a combat there. That's written wrong. Locked in combat, but the one with the arrow going between his arm bones couldn't hold his assailant off. Gia held the knife tight in a cold, blood-sticky hand. The two soldiers tumbled to the ground with the injured one on his back. After a cracking jab to the injured soldier's face, the second soldier straddled the first above the hips, revealed a gleaming knife of his own from the ankle sheath, and stuck it down. The injured soldier stopped the knife with his one good arm and jerked to throw the other off. The blade got closer and closer. Its point was bound for the injured one's mouth. Stomp, 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 and Gia thrust with the full force of his right arm. He drove the knife under the second soldier's ribs and angled it up after he got it inside. All of Gia went cold, from head down, when he let go and fell back. Sitting up, he couldn't believe how much blood was on his hands. The injured soldier finished off the one that attacked him and snapped the arrow in his arm and pulled the shaft out clean. "Angel," the injured soldier called out. "Steady now." He was already tying a strip of cloth around his pierced forearm. Gia couldn't lift his eyes from his own hands. His fingers felt locked, half-curled, and his stomach felt like a rag being wrung dry. The blood ran so deep into the creases and lines of his skin, his lungs wanted to close up. Then a wet red sword appeared in the corner of his vision. He turned to see Vetris swish the blade clean, sheathe the weapon, and hurry over to him. "The first one is always the worst." Vetris grabbed Gia's upper arms and shook him lightly. "Look into my eyes. You needed to do it." The soldier Gia saved said something about rookies. "I didn't want to kill him." Gia's eyes stung, but no tears came. Instead, he shivered through his words. "Look up here." Vetris shook him again. "You'll never be able to live with it if you don't accept that it was necessary. You saved someone who deserved it. The other guy was a betrayer. He would have killed more if you didn't stop him now. Understand?" "But it was wrong." "You're just feeling the pain. It doesn't go away, but you have to learn to carry it." "I'm not a killer." Gia shook his head. The commotion around him was over by then. He smelled burning grass. "We need to get up and keep moving," a familiar voice said. "I can't do this, Nova." "Yes, you can." The general's hands enveloped Gia's and pulled him up to his feet. "I don't want to." When Nova released Gia's hands, most of the blood came off. Nova reeked of campfire, but none of his clothing or hair were singed. "There's too many hiding spots here. We need to keep going until dark. Then we camp." "I'm not a soldier. I'm not an angel. I wasn't made for this." "Nobody's made to kill. Some just get good at it." Nova smacked Gia hard enough on the shoulder to make him stumble sideways. "Even that's not bad. Just don't learn to enjoy it." Part 3, Stars. I'm going to take a drink. Part 3, Stars. "I can't take it back," Gia said an hour later when the troop spread out and set up camp. "No," Nova grumbled. "I should have found another way to stop him." "You saved your fellow soldier," Nova said like a proud parent. That doesn't change anything. Gia's teeth grew cold in the night air. He couldn't seem to close his lips. I stopped a man's heart. He was someone's baby. He had a name, a heart, and a pulse. This morning he woke up just like me. Who knows what he planned to do tonight? He might have been a father, and his kids will never see him again. All he is now is bones and cold meat on the dirt. That's all I did. He lived years, seeing, tasting, and touching the same world until I stuck that knife in him. You're right. Nova took a pack off his arm and set it down. Gia didn't think he would agree. He should have killed me. I didn't have anything. I know it hurts. I went through all of this too. We all have. Nova opened the bag and handed pans, tinder boxes, and some small tools, some hand tools, out to soldiers lining up beside him. The world was going on just the same. Another night, another time to set up camp. That doesn't help, Gia shook his head. What do you want, Gia? Nova asked with his nose halfway in the pack, still doling out supplies. I want to leave. I'd rather be dead than a murderer. I've never wanted to kill anyone. Nova folded the empty bag and pulled his hair back from his face. I know it doesn't help, but you have to believe me when I say that it's hard for everyone. Everyone walks out to the front the first time willing to shed blood, but nobody walks away glad they did it. And that's if they walk away. It's the worst day of your life. For some, today was the last day of theirs. You get to go on. You made a decision. You're going to make it again, and again, and again. Shut up. Gia felt the pain of a knife under his own ribs, but his searching hands felt nothing. You don't understand. You think I'm an angel? How can an angel be a killer? By doing what is necessary. Nova rose up, like a horse about to run straight through Gia. You're a good man. Feeling the pain means you know. You're going to fight people who don't feel pain. They either numbed it out of themselves, or they are so terrible they love it. This world is filled with killers and monsters on two legs. The worst part is they're just like us. I'd rather fight a dragon and an army of demons than a man with no conscience. The real beasts are among us, heartless, unfeeling, cold. That's not you, and that's what's most important. No matter what happened today, the sun comes up tomorrow. Black, gray, or blue, the sky will always look down and give life, and life will go on below it. No matter what happens tomorrow, it still will. So, what will you do if you make it there? I don't know. Gia rubbed the middle of his chest. Dried blood smeared like red dust on his shirt. You have to decide. Nova leaned his head back to look into the blackening night over him. You made the right choice today. So you have to make more choices. I'm not killing anyone else. How can you be so sure? You had to kill today. You did it without hesitation. What did you take from that? Maybe I'm a demon. Gia walked away. He pulled the collar of his shirt tight to the back of his neck and wouldn't look back, no matter what Nova said. He weaved through the wave of tent stakes and wagons until he left camp. Nobody came for him. He couldn't hear anyone follow, and he was glad for it. The throbbing in his feet didn't start until he sat down on a rough rectangular boulder out of earshot of the camp. The stone was hard, and its cold sank all the way into his bones. A heavy breath in, and he held it as long as he could, then let it out. He drew his knees up to his chest and wrapped his arms around them. The stars shimmered as they always had. The moon was less than half, and high in the sky. Nothing was different, but he felt like the world was ending. The pain didn't go away, and he didn't have to sob about it anymore. I hate this, he said to the sky. I don't want to be here. No response. Why am I here? To destroy? How many people do I have to kill before someone pays me back for all of this? The words were subvocal, but echoed like screams inside his head. He hardly felt like anyone anymore. Maybe he was just a husk filled with pain. The face of the man he killed stayed in his mind. The stars almost formed an effigy of those horrific features, but with a blink, the sky was as still as ever. A cloudy band stretched from end to end. There were so many stars. There were stars between stars. No matter how long he looked, he couldn't find a spot without any. Even the darkest patch of sky wasn't empty. Gia breathed out and lost himself staring. Billions of grains of light burned up there. The heavens were both full and yet quite open. No matter how evil everyone said that man was, Gia couldn't help but think some part of him had made it up into the heavens. One star shot northward across the sky and fizzled out as quick as it had appeared. "I'm so sorry," he said into the quiet night. Dawn came after the longest night Gia thought possible. He had returned to camp and slept in one of the spare tents, but couldn't really sleep. The pain kept going, but so did he. He joined formation without breakfast and avoided talking to the other soldiers. Some bowed to him when they noticed he was next to them, but he couldn't look anyone in the eyes. By noon, a few clouds passed over, but the sun brought warmth. He forgot warmth even existed. He thought he'd never feel it again. As the wind blew around him, he tried to keep step with the soldiers around him. Foot after foot, he got closer and closer to matching the pace of their march. He hadn't noticed until now how consistent and coordinated they moved. No commanding officer spoke a single word, but the group moved together with discipline. Maybe that's how they do it, Gia thought. The pain seemed to radiate off everyone, like a shared burden. Their steps were in unison and their direction united. Together they were one. Another day ended and a new one began. Gia got up ready to march right away. The air got warmer and he stopped seeing forests the further they went. Grass grew in bunches and trees changed from tall and straight to bent and twisted. His legs burned from the incline of their march, but he kept walking. Each day brought him further from the cold soil battlefield grave where he left his first kill. Each morning the sun showed more gravel in the dirt, until it was just sand and rocks. Gia's group was not beset by gray shadows or by wild animals the rest of the way. For Gia, each long day somehow added up to very short weeks, and a month passed like a flower petal in the wind. It's another break. It was cloudy on the last day before they reached Kilaba. Gia kept feeling singular drops of rain, but never felt more than one at a time. No rain would fall, but spring still arrived. There were no flowers to tell him this, but the breath of the air was articulate enough. Sage, cactus, and strange trees covered the land. They made camp near a thicket of some of the trees, and entered town a few hours into the next morning. That's actually all of Scene 2. Brings us up to page 143 out of, I should know this, 296, considering the post material. So that's about, well, it's a little less than half, but it's close enough, and I think that's a good place to stop, at least for reading this. So, while this cover here is not the final production cover, the text of the words there is different, the coloration of this gray is slightly different, and this band does not exist. This is what we call in the industry a galley copy. It is not a final printing. It is a first printing for authors to look over and kind of get the feel of what it looks like, how thick it is, how the pages feel. Which, I mean, all things considered, for how cheaply, I shouldn't say cheaply, for how inexpensive the printing is, this is some good quality paper. And I like how clean the actual print job is. Go back to an old page as my cat navigates my desk. Obviously this is still going to be flipped backward, but it's a pretty clean printing for how inexpensive the Kindle Direct publishing process is. And that is something I should make clear. Sorry about my clock. It's not a literal grandfather clock, but it did belong to my grandfather, so I call it a grandfather clock. Hold on, I'm going to adjust how I'm sitting here for a second. The process of Kindle Direct publishing is really inexpensive. You don't actually have to pay anything to get a book available on the Kindle e-store, or Kindle store, Kindle app. You can do that basically for free. And if you don't register your copyright with the government, which is a bad idea, if you don't do it, you can do it completely for free. But I suggest to anyone ever that wants to publish a book, protect your copyright. That just seems like a really obvious thing. It's kind of expensive, but it's about the same as like registering a vehicle for the year. I just got my vehicle registration recently, and it's like $85 in Wisconsin. I think it was around $80 to protect the copyright for the book for Withered Kingdom. I know back in 2009 it was closer to $50 or $60, so that price has steadily risen, and I feel like it's not necessary for it to cost that much, but some government employee is reading through my book, or has at some point read through my book, and has said, yes, this is authentic to this person, and it hasn't been written before, and because of that copyright protection with the U.S. Patent Office, it can hold up in court that it hasn't been that it is not a derivative work of someone else's material. Since this is technically a sequel of sorts to my first book that I published back in 2009, I believe I had to mark it as a derivative work as a sequel, but it is not anyone else's material. I still own all the rights except for first publishing rights to my first book, but all the characters belong to me. The copyright for both books belongs to me. I like self-publishing because I like having control over these things, and I don't have the even the resources, honestly, to traditionally publish anymore. And traditional publishing doesn't even, it seems like it's going to be less and less of a thing as time goes on. I don't know if anyone's actively even listening to me ramble on, but I like having content. This will end up on my blog, so I'm just going to keep rambling. Maybe someone else will join in. If you do, say hi. I'll do the little wave, the wave response if you're one of my friends and you join in, because I enjoy being able to interact with people in a live stream. The whole world of publishing is changing. I definitely brought this up some on my blog if you've ever watched it. Just last week, Brandon Sanderson, the man who finished the Wheel of Time series after the death of Robert Jordan, and who is the author of The Way of Kings and Mistborn, and his own interconnected universe referred to as the Cosmere, Brandon Sanderson created a Kickstarter for 5 novels that he wrote in secret during the pandemic, during the isolation of the pandemic, and set a goal to put up a Kickstarter to raise $1 million in like 30 days. Oh, I don't know what it's up to now, but a day after he posted it, it became the most backed Kickstarter of all time by millions of dollars. He just wanted 1 million, but he's now, the last time I checked, I think $24 million, and that was a couple days ago. I believe you can look it up on Kickstarter. It's just called 5 Secret Novels, or 4 Secret Novels, because one's technically a novella. Brandon Sanderson, to put it simply, is probably the most prolific writer of all time. Stephen King is definitely in the lead right now. Maybe not for all time, but Stephen King, being older, has written more than Brandon Sanderson. But if Brandon Sanderson lives as long as Stephen King has, he will outright him at this pace. It's not even funny. The man is a machine in the way that even Stephen King's days of doing cocaine and writing for hours and hours, repeating that cycle, Brandon Sanderson is somehow passing him up by his age and by this point in his life. Also, the publishing world was very different back then. Stephen King had no choice but to publish in the most traditional possible way. He tells stories in his book On Writing about how he put a nail in his wall and he stuck every rejection letter or every pink rejection slip from publishers onto that nail until eventually the papers weighed so much that they pulled the nail out of the wall, and he kept getting rejection letters before he actually got published for the first time. And I think that was probably Carrie. That was his first published work. Stephen King, absolute monster of a writer. The only reason he really slowed down, I think, is, aside from age, the car accident that happened where he got hit by a van and was this close to dying. And so he can't really write as much as he used to because he is physically much less capable of what he used to be. Brandon Sanderson doesn't really have that restriction, and he is living in a time where the publishing world is changing, and his act of taking to Kickstarter to publish 5 novels of his own, or 4 and a novella, is a complete difference. Like, the idea of submitting a book to a publisher for them to pay you in advance and them to maybe market your book well enough for it to make a profit, and, you know, everyone in the company having absolutely no idea what makes a book successful, because it really comes down to a roll of the dice in the end. That whole business model just doesn't make sense anymore. A lot of publishing companies have decided to totally shift their priorities and look for self-published authors, fan fiction writers, bloggers, all kinds of other types of writers to bring in talent, that is already formed, because doing that is easier than taking a chance and, you know, writing a few tens of $1,000 check to, you know, supply your writer with their living until they can write you another book, and then they do that again and again and again, and you pay them royalties, on and on and on. That business model that has been around for a very, very long time doesn't make much sense anymore. Kindle direct publishing makes it so anyone can publish something, and it's really easy, honestly. I mean, there's some legal aspects to it in terms of getting your copyright protection. You do have to... No, I don't think you have to pay for an ISBN number, a barcode. I know I got my barcode for free because I published through Kindle Direct Publishing. Ebooks are cheap. It's just digital. There's no print cost. Doesn't cost any startup to get it done. You might end up paying someone to do some cover art, or you could use stock photos. If you know some typography, you could do your own kind of your own cover design. I should have the actual printed version here with me, but like, that's basically what I did. It's not super complicated. That's a nice textured background, some art that was done by a friend of mine, and basically the positioning of the text. I took a class back in college that gave some basic advice on how to position and order things so that they are visually appealing, kind of the basics of graphic design, and that has gone a long way for me. It's been a very productive thing. So I've been able to completely self-publish, and I'm probably going to have to follow in Brandon Sanderson's footsteps to do it again, because I want more art, I want more professional editing, I want more detailed proofreading, I want a million things to make the next book, which will immediately follow up Withered Kingdom, a much bigger deal and something people will want to back on a Kickstarter. Crowdfunding like Kickstarter, I feel like, is the future of publishing, that people are going to either get their start doing that, or they're going to do that their whole career, and that might be what I do. If a publishing company sees this and they're like, hey, I want to buy your book, please call me. I'm absolutely still open to the idea of fitting in with Tor, or I don't know, some sci-fi and fantasy major publisher out there. That would be a great way for me to make money on my writing, which is my life's goal, is to publish all these novels that I have in my head. For reference, I have completed first drafts of 3 books after this one that I've already published. Withered Kingdom is my second book that I've published on my own, and it's intended to be the beginning of a series. The first book is not necessary to read, but Withered Kingdom is. The 2009 novel, I should say, is not necessary to read because it is covered in summary in Withered Kingdom, and Withered Kingdom takes place in a different place, in a different time, a different world completely, and most of the characters have changed. So the tragedy of Gia is not exactly necessary to read. If you do have it, cool. I know a few people bought it. Not a lot, though. I still have a box full of them that I haven't been able to sell, just because I didn't really try that hard, and because I have become a much better writer since then. I want to start a Kickstarter sometime in the near future for either the hardcover version of Withered Kingdom and some merchandise and an audiobook, or go straight to Kickstarter for the sequel. The sequel will be called The Third Vessel. That's been decided for a long time, and I am really eager to finish telling this story. Withered Kingdom and The Third Vessel are 2 parts of what was originally going to be 1 book. And it's something that I get giddy about when I think, like, I want people to read it. I want people to share this with their friends and watch me read it online, because it helps expand awareness for what I'm doing here. I'm basically trying to become as successful as I can writing books with the minimum amount of resources. Whatever's as free as I can get, I'm going to use. I am thinking of recording my own audiobook, which should have much, much, much better audio quality than my phone that is literally set in the grooves of an upside down paper cup to hold the phone into place. I'm just doing Facebook live streaming. I'll upload this to YouTube later and share it to my blog. I'm doing everything as cheaply as I can because I believe in myself enough, and I'm trying to find people who believe in me too. If you do, if you want to buy my book, please check it out. It's on Amazon. Just search Withered Kingdom or Nathan T. Orgel or Nathan Thomas Orgel. Orgel spelled the way that you're probably seeing it on this live stream. Orgill, 2 L's. You can search that on Amazon. It's available now as in the US Amazon store. It is available as a Kindle ebook for $3.99. And as a paperback, which I can see one of the final production versions from here, but I'm too lazy to get up and grab it. and I kind of want to stay in frame here, is $12. If you live in the Oshkosh area of Wisconsin, or if you live anywhere in the Fox cities and can make it to Oshkosh, check out House of Heroes comic book store. I sold a couple copies to them. They are amazing. They have way more comics than I've ever seen in one place in my entire life. Even if they're not the biggest, like physically largest store, House of Heroes is a great place to get your nerd on. They have Funko Pops. They have current comics. They have graphic novels. They have a whole section just for local writers. I picked up a couple comics from there. And there was another like text style novel that had been written, and then there's at least 2 copies, or there were at least 2 copies if they were sold. That's great. If they've been sold out, I will put more in stock, because I had a good experience talking with the owner at House of Heroes, and I think we have a good future together, because that's the first place I've been able to get it into a physical store. I want to take part in a signing sometime around Free Comic Book Day, an author signing, so I can kind of get the word out better. But yeah, for right now, unless you can walk up to me in person or, message me on Facebook, the easiest way to find my book is through Amazon. Otherwise, just talk to me and I'll sell you one of the copies that I have in my box here at home. It'd be a lot easier for everyone that way. Just go on Amazon, search Withered Kingdom, $12, pretty cheap for a paperback book. The shipping should be free. The shipping should be free if you have Amazon Prime, because Amazon is the one publishing the book, or technically I'm the one publishing the book. I'm using their services. But yeah, it should be really cheap to ship, but it won't be 2-day shipping or 1-day shipping unless there's a copy sitting somewhere in a warehouse, because it is print on demand, which means that when they get an order for the book, they put the paper in the machine and they print it out. So it could take quite a bit longer. I don't know how close the nearest Amazon printer is, but wherever that is, I know the last time I ordered a box of books for myself, took more than a week for it to arrive. So, that's how it goes. Because the product isn't physically tangible until you actually order it, if I was able to sell enough, if you tell your friends, if you like and comment and share this video, this live stream here on Facebook to everyone that you know, or just to the public, that might change, and there might be some held in the Amazon warehouses if the book is selling enough. So, thanks everyone who watched. I know it says Tom Barbola is watching. I don't know if he still is, but at least he was. Thanks for watching, for sure, you and anyone else who might have snuck in while I was looking down at the pages. I really appreciate it, and I know it's what you hear all the time whenever you hear anything on YouTube, but it's really true. The algorithms for Facebook and for Google and for Amazon and for everything depend on every reaction, every comment, every little bit of exposure comes from everyone else and how they interact with the video. So even if you think, hey, your voice is terrible and you should probably never read this out loud again, even then you're still leaving a comment, and that helps me spread some awareness. I really enjoy writing. I have grown to enjoy live streaming. I was really nervous about it at first, but I enjoy reading out loud for people, and I tend to think I have a decent enough voice that it's interesting. So please share this video, give a like or some kind of reaction, and give a comment. Share it wherever you can. Share it to your Twitter, share it to your I don't know if Tumblr's a thing anymore, but Facebook, Reddit, who knows? Whatever you got, I could sure use the exposure. I know that I share all of my blog to Kindle to Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Right now, my latest blog post should be live. That was a full review of the Batman, the Batman movie that just came out last weekend. I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic movie. One of the best visual interpretations of Batman we've ever had. Robert Pattinson absolutely knocks it out of the park. It's great. You should watch it. It's PG-13. It was originally looking like it was going to be R, but it's definitely PG-13. They do some creative forced perspective to blur out some gore. There's a severed thumb at one point. But you don't really have to see anything, so it's not really... it's not gory. Even if it's violent, it's not beyond PG-13 levels of violent. I think it's a great movie. So, end on that note, I really like Batman as a whole, and The Batman is a great movie. Matt Reeves, I doubt it as a director, but he's really good. Robert Pattinson's great. John Turturro is probably the best part of it. He plays a crime boss, and he's just perfect performance. Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Very, very unique take on the Batman. Something we haven't seen since The Dark Knight, basically. Probably the best DC movie we've had since The Dark Knight as well. And that's what everyone's saying, but they're right. So I don't feel bad about repeating them. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you all the next time I see you in person or the next time I live stream. Thanks. Bye.